So what's important to you when you think about like how to print your artworks? What do you need?
This is a very interesting question because different type of images needs different type of prints. For example, like black and white pictures will need like different paper or different material than a colored one. I tend to work with a very dark environment. I work with lots of blacks in a way, which is a nightmare for printers because it needs to be handled like extra care. The ink is much more sensitive than the lighter inks. Any kind of small scratches, it's visible on black. I don't like when it comes to, for example, this series is the one of my portrait series here. I chose for this a matte paper, a very thick one. It's about like 280 grams. But I would be very interested how this serial would look like in a shiny material, which is not paper, for example. This would be very interesting for me to know, if you have like different material rather than paper, to see like how it looks like, having like some test prints. And then, then I can also come up with different ideas. I think the more input an artist have from different sides, the more freedom the artist has. I would like to experiment a lot. As you see, these pictures are all different in a way.
But still they are all also with, let's say, strong colors and also with high contrast.
Yes.
So I guess the material has to underline this, because otherwise this effect gets lost. And I think this is a bit the danger. For example, you print on wood. I don't see these materials on wood because certain, let's say, the vibrancy of these images would get lost. I think it needs to be material like, as you said, paper, or also some glossy surface, also some like with a hand finish probably. I think as an art lover, when you see them on the wall, you also want them to be presented in a way that is not, let's say, the normal or the standard.
I think like a real collector is like really into detail. I mean, most of them are really into detail, and they like to have the feeling of made with care. And regardless what material you print on, is the thing that you have been through a process of thinking, like which image fits to which material.
First of all, we as printers also always have to learn, and there's always new materials, there's always new conversations you have with artists. You always also experiment, because sometimes we also think that a material is not suited for printing, and then we start printing, and with 90% of the images it doesn't look good. But if with 10% of the images it really fits, then it's already also a success story. And there is another aspect to it which is quite interesting from our experience over the last years, is like younger artists sometimes tend to be more resistant to like being advised, because obviously I think it also has to do with youth, or it has to do with when you start, you always think that you know exactly what you want, and that experienced photographers, on the other hand, are very open to new ideas. It doesn't mean that they accept them. It only means that they are open to ideas. We talk to it, and probably after the conversation, they leave and they don't even know what they're going to do with it. But then suddenly they have this spark of this new idea a couple of months or even years later, and they say, oh, I remember you once showed me this material, and now I have this new series and this fits. And I think this is why artists should be open, because what we are not trying to do is to convince them into a certain material or to talk them into something. I think with a real artist or a creative mind, it doesn't work anyway, because my experience with like the really creative people is they are creative because they suck in a lot of information from different sources, even sometimes contradictory ideas. It sometimes the contradictory ideas can be very interesting, because the creative mind then sleeps a couple of times over it, and then one day it says, okay, I have filtered something out of that, And this is my new series, and I think this is a very interesting process, and for us it's very interesting also to observe. So what we usually do before we show the materials is that we speak about like different options, because we have created this booklet where we have materials like, for example, high gloss, or for example, if probably some that could be interesting to you, for example, glass, because you said that you wanted to have a certain glossy effect.
Yeah.
So now the question is, if I compare these two with the high gloss, you end up having a surface that has like certain irregularities, because what we do is we print on aluminum and then we hand lacquer layers, so that we end up with a surface that is glossy, but also, as I said, has these like certain uneven elements in it, and so it looks handmade. So this could be like one option in terms of glossy surface that is interesting for some of your works. But what is also an interesting option is glass, because glass is also very glossy, and it has the advantage that it is a very, let's say, technical surface. Of course, the disadvantage is like it can be very heavy. So for like big artwork, sometimes our collectors say, okay, it's not really an option on certain walls. If, for example, the wall is very old, then you need a lot of screws. So sometimes it's like a practical reason why people don't like glass. Also, the logistics behind are more complicated. But once it's on a wall, there is a lot of artists and art lovers that really like glass as a material. And what we can also do is very nice polished edges. And so glass definitely is also an option that you should consider. This is the more classic gallery print, which you already know from many print shops. Of course, we offer it. Ceramics is another option that we offer, that we can look in detail. I'm not so sure if this is an option that could be interesting for you or not.
It's good to know that it exists, and then maybe in some day that I come up with an idea, or there is a concept which requires ceramics to print on. And this is like, knowledge is always valuable.
Yeah.
It's always good to know.
Yeah, it's a warm material, and the same goes for wood. It's even warmer, so it depends. Yeah, because here we have like it's an organic material. It's living. So for certain artists, like for example here in this case, it really fits perfect. Yeah, but again, this is something that always depends on your expectations. We also have another material that is like glossy. It's like this artboard. Basically, there is no hand work involved. So it has the advantage with respect to the high gloss that it is cheaper. The main difference is that this handmade effect does not appear here, but we have many artists who say, okay, it's fine, and also it's very nice and very high end and also even sophisticated material. I mean, if you hang it on the wall, many people will actually think that it's handmade, because if you walk along, you really see there is even certain reflections on it that are also not straight. So it's a difference to glass and acrylics.
Okay, interesting.
We also offer canvas. Canvas, of course, I mean, you said that you want to have brilliant colors and you need this high contrast. Canvas is not a good material for that. I mean, it's a very nice material for a lot of artworks, particularly if the original is hand painted. Probably for you it's not like one of the most interesting options. And then we have a lot of papers, which we can also look at them. They all have different advantages and disadvantages, different structure, different sharpness, and also different qualities to it, because it's always, if you see certain structures that are very strong, the disadvantage is that if you look at it like from a very close-up perspective, you see that it's not that sharp. So again, for some artists this is perfect.
Yeah.
For some artists this would be a disadvantage.
Yes.
And then of course we also have glossy paper. Always depends on how you hang it, right? Because glossy paper, you never just hang the glossy paper on the wall. Depends what type of frame you use, if you want to have glass in front or not. there is different ways of presenting it, and then it could also be an interesting option. I think it's time to also speak about the materials themselves and also to show. One material that is also particularly interesting is the ceramics. I mean, again, it's like you can see here, we can make it very matte, or we can also cover it with a surface that is glossy. For certain artworks, it's a really nice option. You can frame it, but you can also hang it in a way that you see this edge, which can be very interesting. Of course, it's a material that gets heavy if it's a big size. So again, for some people it's no problem, but for some artists and also for some art lovers, this would be a disadvantage. And what is also very nice about ceramics is you can create a mosaic with it.
Okay.
And you can use, for example, this tile as a certain size. You could place a bigger one or a smaller one besides. They can have different sizes, and then you create a mosaic, or you create them all with one size. Or we can even print on a very, very, very big ceramic in one piece.
Oh.
This could also be interesting for some artworks.
This is a good to know factor. I mean, as I see now, it has like a painting on it, like it's a reproduction, I assume. Yeah, I mean, it looks great in detail. If I may say that, like the print itself, it's quite good. Just a quick thought through, it's like a collage of photos. There are places in the living area where you can have like a collage on the wall, like really glued to the wall of photos. Can be interesting.
But also what is interesting about these materials is you really need to see them, because there is certain haptic when you touch it, there is certain sound to it.
Yeah.
I think you really also need to see it, because if you take a photo of this material, many people who've never seen it cannot appreciate that. First of all, it has a certain touch. It's like a little bit uneven. You can see that it's also like not a standard material, and it has like a certain sound to it, which in the end, you know, when you hang it and when you like have it in your hands, you also feel the weight, and it's something that for many people is not important, but for some it is, and it's something that they really appreciate because it's different.
As you just mentioned, touching, like haptic thing, it's like in this state, like without the coating you mentioned. If I touch here, I mean, I will apply some of the oil from my finger. Could I actually like clean it in this state?
Yes,
like,
here there is already a coating on it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a matte coating. We can also do a glossy coating.
Okay.
And so you can touch it and you can clean it. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
And what is actually also very good, even if you touch it a lot and then you don't clean it, when you move around,
I can see.
you don't really see the fingerprints. Yeah. Of course, if you have it in a hotel lobby and thousands of people touch it every day, you need to clean it sometimes. But it's a material that is not like very sensitive to touch. Yeah.
So what else is in the box? I'm quite curious what you can...
Yeah, we have many different options that we have pre-selected for professional photographers, and this is one that is very interesting. It's this glossy, of course, this glossy surface that is not handmade, but still it has a very nice feel and surface, because you can see that it's like a little bit irregular, and the gloss is not as technical as with glass. So we have a lot of people that even prefer that to glass, and of course it's much lighter than glass.
It's
and it can be put on the wall like this, or it can be framed.
If I go like very close, this is like amazing details here, so it's very sharp.
Yeah, what we do is we can print on photo paper, traditional, very high printing quality, and then we can apply this layer of gloss afterwards.
Okay.
So that's what is so nice about it. We can even do like different shapes. We can cut out like the square, but we could also cut out a circle or any free shape.
Okay.
If you wanted this to be a guitar, we could cut out a guitar.
Oh, that's also like an interesting input. That you just go away from the original four square nature of the picture. This is very nice.
Another very interesting option is wood, because it's a living material, and for many artists, particularly the ones that have hand-painted originals, can be very interesting. Here we have only very thin one, but usually we choose a thicker one that also in big sizes it's still stable, like here in the small sample. And I mean, I personally like the touch of it. I mean, it's wood, it's nature, it's organic, and what is possible here, there's like endless possibilities. We could, for example, in this case, if the artist had wanted, we could have left out, for example, these areas so that the wood structure could be seen here. For certain ideas, it could be a very interesting option. Or even if you wanted to be the wood like a sky, or like to have the function of the sky, you could have cut out here this line as an artist, and then this whole area would be again the wood. So the wood would be the sky. Or again, we can also cut it out. So if an artist wants another shape that is not four edges that are straight, we could even cut out again a circle, or we could cut out like any other free form.
As a reproduction, I find it quite good as the quality. But you know, I was thinking maybe illustrators would actually appreciate this option, that you can work with partial printing, that you don't have to print like everything, because what they do, like they work with forms and shapes like much more, and maybe that would be interesting for them to, you know, combine the original material with what they actually present as a piece of art in illustration. That would be very interesting, I guess.
And here's another example for ceramics, but this time with a partial glossy here, because what we did here is we took a glossy ceramic, and all the areas that are printed here appear to be matte, and all the areas of the ceramic that are glossy and are not printed appear to be glossy.
I could actually find out easily some stuff where I can paste the fact of reflection into the concept from the beginning. So there's like one part of the image only reflects and all the others are matte. It's fascinating that you can combine matte and shiny into one image, because that's a whole other level of thinking regarding to prints.
Yeah, it's very interesting. For example, if you have a black and white photography with a white background, and then you have like let's say the printed content here matte, and the background is completely glossy. Or very interesting also for illustrators, because you could have an outline and the outline is matte, and then again everything that is not the outline is glossy.
I'm sure you can offer on different materials as well this option that I have, like one part is glossy, one part is not glossy. Then it's already something to consider, you know, to think about. It's always very interesting. Maybe you say like this would not be interesting for me, but who knows? As we just said before, that maybe an information you give me here triggers something, and then in a year or so I come up with an idea with shiny effects. Materials and creating art pieces were always walking hand in hand, and the development of for example pigments in paintings, how they created all these nice colors which last hundreds of years. This is also a development, and it wasn't there for first, so they had to find out how to make it work. And I think this is the new age of development, and I think it's quite important because as a print shop or as a printer, you give the artist how I feel now. You give new tools into artists' hand, and I think that's a very important stuff. And yeah, good to know that you do things like that.
So this is another material that has a glossy surface and it's glass. And here again, the nice thing is we can do it like with different options. Like for example, the side here has like this nice edge. But if you take thicker glass, the edge can be even more visible to be like 45 degrees here, again 45, again 45.
Okay.
And this is like looks like nearly like a diamond shape, and because we print from the back, then even this side is printed, and it's a very elegant way, like even to hang it without a frame. As you can feel, this is a heavy material.
Yeah, it's like significantly heavier than the other materials.
Yeah, so it's very fast in bigger sizes. You can reach 30, 40, 50 kilos. Yeah, it's a material that is quite sensitive to fingerprints in terms of if you touch, you see.
Okay.
But then again, it's easy to clean, and it's like also like for public spaces, glass can be very good.
Is there a certain material you suggest to clean it with?
Yes, our recommendation is to use microfiber tissue. It's cheap and effective. So now that you've seen our, let's say, more innovative and unusual materials, I think it's also still important to talk about some materials that are more in the classical realm and that are quite known. But again, it's about the details, because like also with the gallery print, always depends what thickness you choose, so that the sandwich really looks nice. And yeah, what we do is we recommend it for like vibrant colors, and it's, I think, a material that is well known, and we have it in our portfolio because many people simply expect it, and we actually like it for many artworks like this one, for example. I think it's a very nice choice.
This is like what people can expect from a gallery print, but it's in a quite good quality.
And then, of course, regarding papers, there is a whole universe. Printing on paper, from our perspective, is like it's a science itself. You can try a lot trial and error. Which printer works well with which paper, and it's a lot of development behind. And we have selected a couple of papers where we have like very nice experiences with them, because they are all quite different in terms of haptic experience and also in terms of what you can do with it. For example, this is a torsion paper that, as you can see, has a ondulated surface that is quite different from most other papers. It looks a bit like it has been like hand hammered in a way, and it's it's very like classical traditional material.
Well, what I have to say about this, I think this is a very good pair between the paper and the image itself, because the structure of the paper fits amazingly good with the theme of the skin. It looks like it would be real. Like, I mean, this is what I mean when you actually think of the concept, considering the printing technique from the beginning. I mean, if you would print this on an unstructured paper, that would be much different. And I think this one is amazing, how it fits together.
We also have a lot of Hahnemühle papers artists can choose from. And yeah, for example, this one has a different look and feel than, for example, this one over here. And also in terms of the edges, what we can do is we can create by hand these deckled edges, which looks very elegant. There's also a way of presenting it where you put it on a frame, like within a frame, and then the frame goes here and it's kind of floating within the frame, can look very elegant. So yeah, for like artworks that in the original are like hand painted, like aquarelle, for example, like other like watercolor style. It can also be a very interesting option.
Has the feeling that this is not even a print, it's like an original painting. This is quite amazing how digital reproduction techniques are developed these days. This one is a great example of working with black. Amazed about the quality of this one. It's cool. And but it still remains very sharp, even if it's like a fine art paper. It's just not that glossy kind of paper. It's really nice.
So I hope I could give you like a short overview over our materials, and yeah, that you also have some new ideas in mind when you return to your workplace and think in the next month and years about what you can do regarding materials. And we will continue to develop materials, and always looking for new innovative ways of presenting artworks.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel, for this little show around. It was very interesting to see the quality and the versatility of what you can present. Yeah, I definitely will take the information with me and then keep it in mind and then try to use it in my flow. Yeah, thanks once again.
Welcome. Thank you for your time, and hopefully we can continue working together. And I think it's always fun to being able to not only think about materials or like experimenting with like non-real concepts, but to really be able in the end to like after a lot of like trial and error and investing into new materials and new options, where you say many don't work, but then in the end when you see like a finished artwork that really looks good and the artist is happy, and then in the end hopefully also the art collector is happy, well, this is what motivates us, right? Because in the end it's not about printing for the sake of printing. In the end, it's about being able to produce something that is not there yet. But again, that's not too crazy so that no one is hanging it. The ideal would be to like produce artworks and also like to have concepts that someone has put in a lot of work in it, and in the end it hangs on the wall and it makes people not only happy, but it makes people also think, and it makes people enjoy what they have. And it's not about just like hanging anything on the wall. And so, I mean, you said before that in a couple of like decades ago, there was a limitation in terms of material, and many artists used what they could get. And nowadays, I think artists have a lot of choice, a lot of freedom. And it doesn't mean that you should use it, right? Sometimes the simple or like materials where people say that's a simple material. A simple material can be the perfect material. But again, sometimes for many artworks, as we discussed, it's always good to have innovative options where people just get a certain, let's call it wow effect, right? Because then they stand in front of it and they don't even know, is the image what's really interesting about the whole artwork, or is it the material? Or, you know, the best is if people don't ask too many questions in the end. The best is if they see the artwork, they stand there and they see it as an artwork itself. And it doesn't matter then anymore if it's printed on paper or on high gloss or on glass or whatever the material is.
I think this is the goal what every artist should go for, that there is no such a question asked when the art piece is presented, that there's no need to ask anything else, just stand in front of the print and then having the joy or having the experience of what the photographer, what the artist wanted to say. Yeah, this is the goal I think everybody should go for.